What is a team? Define teams as a group of people who exist to perform organizationally relevant tasks, share one or more common goals, and interact socially, exhibit task independencies, and maintain boundaries, and are embedded in organizational context that sets boundaries, constrains the team, and influences exchanges in the other unit's broader entity. Teams exist to accomplish specific tasks that are related to common goals. A team is bounded and stable set of individuals interdependent for a common purpose. 5 conditions that must be met if a group is to be considered a team versus a work group. Teams must be real. Teams need a compelling direction. Teams need enabling structures. Teams need supportive organization. And teams need expert coaching. There are 5 common problems that people experience when working with teams: lack of commitment, productivity losses, poor communication, interpersonal conflict, and poor leadership. 3 essential conditions for team success are trust, team identity, and collective efficiency. Loshi suggests that trust is necessary for an effective team functioning. Without it, a host of dysfunctions may emerge, including fear of conflict, lack of commitment, and avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. Collective efficiency concludes a short list of the most vital elements of leading to team success. We know that optimism and self-confidence can go a long way in enhancing personal achievement. Teams are no different. In order for teams to be the most successful, they need to believe in the accomplishment of their goals. 4 characteristics that lead to innovation and effective performance are shared vision, participation safety, task organization, and support for innovation. Shared vision describes the importance of developing a clear and objective goals that are visionary in nature but also attainable. Participative safety exists when the levels of trust and support are such that members feel safe participating freely in group discussions to decisions. Task orientation is achieved when teams uphold their commitment to a high performance standard by monitoring performance, holding one another accountable, and giving honest feedback and engaging in constructive conflict to reach their goals. Support for innovation are open to examining existing ways of doing things and are willing to take risk and experiment with new ideas. Innovation often means change, and change can create anxiety. Stages of development: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Threats to effective collaboration. There are numerous threats of effective collaboration, including size of the team, degree of virtual participation, the amount of diversity, and the education levels of the members. Improving collaboration. Ways to improve collaboration include team composition, meeting space, leadership practices all contribute to the conditions conducive for success. Team composition, meeting space, and leadership practices. Teams must have a clear vision of what they are trying to accomplish. A team mission, charter, or project statement can give a clear vision of the purpose of the goals. Chapter 2. Team design affects how a group of individuals interact as a unit and serves as a key determinant of success. Team design can be imposed from external source, or it can emerge organically from within the team itself. Roles and responsibilities. Roles are a set of prescriptions that define the behaviors required of an individual member who occupies a certain position. Those roles can be assigned by the leader, decided by the team, or volunteered by specific members. Three major categories of group roles: task roles, relationship roles, and individual roles. Task roles are roles that contribute to the ultimate goal of the group. Relationship roles, on the other hand, are roles that can build cohesion within the group. And individual roles work against the group's goals and distract the group from its mission. Team culture. Culture is learned set of beliefs, values, and customs, and a history that unifies the group. It helps make the sense of the world and influence their behavior. The culture of a group or organization can be communicated in many ways throughout symbolic mediums, such as rituals and ceremonies. Shared mental models include common sets of beliefs, attitudes that guide the group thinking decisions. Groups have a tendency to view their own group in an overly inflated way while viewing other groups in especially competing groups in an overly negative way. This is called in-group out-group bias, whereas individuals consider their group as better than other groups. Groupthink is a condition that occurs when teams are overly cohesive or when one or more members have too much power and influence the group as a whole. Building the team. Team building begins as a clear understanding of the task that the team is trying to accomplish. Task complexity. Groups that engage in complex tasks require greater levels of coordination, participation, and decentralized communication. Again, groups that engage in complex tasks require greater levels of coordination, participation, and decentralized communication. They are simply more details and interdependencies to monitor and manage. Task complexity increases the following: task unfamiliarity, task ambiguity, the volume of information required to understand the task, the number of alternatives, and the number of subordinate tasks to define. Types of interdependence. There's pooled interdependence, refers to a group. They may simply divide the work among its members in order to be compiled at the finished to produce a product at a later time. Example would be cleaning up after a football game. Each one takes their own section. Sequential interdependence occurs when groups are dependent on work of others prior to being able to complete their own. As one person finishes a portion of the task, he or she hands off to the next person. This often can create a bottleneck in the process. Reciprocal interdependence requires the greatest level of interaction among members as they work together simultaneously. Members influence one another as tasks are completed simultaneously with input from each others. Example be sailing teams of the America's Cup. Team composition. Not only do teams need to have talented members, they need to have skills that are complement each other. Ideally, each member will possess task-related knowledge and skills along with interpersonal skills that enable them to work together with others. Teamwork SKA test is used to measure team knowledge, skills, and abilities. Interpersonal knowledge, skills, and abilities. Social losing occurs in larger groups. It's when people desire to do as little work as possible. Smaller groups can't afford to have members slacking off, so again, this occurs more in bigger groups. The following levels describe the possible ways members might relate to goals of a team. Commitment. These members are committed to the goal and motivated to achieve it. Compliance. Members are compliant, do what they are asked. They really don't do any more than what they have to, and they rarely volunteer or go above and beyond. Resistance. Group members who resist are working against the group. And disengagement. Members are just physically there, but they're apathetic to the group. Interpersonal dynamics of conflict. Interpersonal dynamics describe the interaction among members in a specific social context. It describes the way members relate to one another in a certain setting. Norms are the interpersonal rules that members are expected to follow. Norms define roles and behaviors in such a way that it makes social settings predictable, through repetition over time. Norms define roles and behavior in such a way that it makes social settings predictable through repetition over time. Norms not only describe what is, which are descriptive norms, but also what should be, which are injunctive norms. Team norms can develop in one of four ways: through initial group patterns, explicit behavior or statements, critical events, or past group experiences. There are two specific group norms that are necessary for maximum group functioning. They are: number one, ongoing self-evaluation, and number two, ethical standards of behavior. Social styles. The characteristics of interpersonal strategies can carry into styles of verbal and nonverbal action. These styles of individuals can be determined by identifying interpersonal characteristics along two columns: degree of assertiveness and degree of emotional expression. Based on those two variables, group members can be classified into one of four social styles: analytic, driver, expressive, or admirable. An analytic person is industrious, systematic, persistent, detail-oriented, serious, precise, and thinking-oriented, strong need to be right. A driver is objective, determined, efficient, independent, pragmatic, decisive, action-oriented, needed strong results. An expressive person is imaginative, stimulating, fun-loving, enthusiastic, strong need for social recognition. And amiable is friendly, dependable, easygoing, and cooperative, loyal, feeling oriented, strong need for maintain relationships. Conflict is the disagreement, discord, or friction that occurs when the actions of beliefs of one or more members of the groups are unacceptable and are resisted by one or more of the group members. Conflict is an important step in group development and team performance. Conflict typically begins to emerge during the storming stage. Teams that avoid conflict may acquiesce to overly simplistic decisions and take the path of least resistance in problem solving. Team members can view conflict as something akin to growing pains, perhaps a bit uncomfortable, but holding the promise of development and creating just the right amount of creative fiction to improve team performance. Levels of conflict. Level 1 of conflict is about facts or data. Level 1 conflict involves conflict about facts or data. Level 2, uh, level of conflict, processes or methods. Level 2 conflict occurs when groups members disagree about how something should be done. As group members work on various tasks, how they do it can become a source of tension. Level 3 on the levels of conflict is goals or purpose. When moving from how to why, it becomes more complicated. Why are we here? Why are we working on this? What is the ultimate objective of our coordinated effort? Without a unified vision, team members begin pulling against one another and power struggles can erupt. Level 4, values or beliefs. Level 4 conflict is the most deeply rooted and difficult to resolve because it's tied to who we are. The values of group members are intrinsically linked to their identities. Task versus relationship conflict. Conflict can be advantageous for teams, but it also can hinder performance. Task or substance conflict includes disagreements about the team's task or goals. In many cases, groups can use this type of conflict to increase creativity, make better plans, or solve complex problems more thoroughly. Relationship or affective conflict includes disagreements among one or two more member groups based on differences in personal tastes or interpersonal style. %40 of the group conflict is rooted in conflict among the individuals that is unrelated to the group's goals. Conflict management style. There's 4 types: competing, collaboration, avoiding, accommodating, and compromising. The highest level of assertiveness, a high level of assertiveness combined with a low level of cooperation describes competing conflict style. Conflict of this nature is more likely to occur when group resources are scarce. A low level of assertiveness combined with a low level of cooperativeness generates the avoiding conflict styles. Team members who have a low level of assertiveness and a high level of cooperation have an accommodating conflict style. Competing is not necessarily bad, and accommodating is not necessarily good, but in most cases, collaboration is the optimal conflict style because it attempts to satisfy everybody's needs and concerns. And compromising is the best alternative when you can't collaborate to come up with a result. Emotional intelligence. One of the main influence on interpersonal dynamics of a team is the emotional and society maturity of the leader and team members. The most effective team members are able to recognize and regulate emotions in themselves and others. Chapter 4. Team leadership is the practice of enlisting or overseeing others in pursuit of shared goals. Leadership seeks to inspire others to the highest levels of individual, team, and organizational performance. Self-managed teams. Self-managed teams are more than groups of people working together to accomplish tasks defined by their managers. Self-managed work teams are, as their name implies, truly managed. truly self-managed, these teams hold the responsibility for the entire process, including goal setting, creating a project plan, dividing up the tasks, assigning responsibility, and allocating compensation. Theories of leadership. Trait theories. More recent research has characteristics of the 5-factor model of personality: openness, consciousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. The most effective leaders on average exhibit higher levels of extroversion, consciousness, and openness. Contingency theories. Situational leadership is well-known contingency theory of leadership developed by Blanchard and Hershey. The theory suggests that leaders are defined by two things: the amount of direction they give and the amount of support they give. Situational leadership theory asserts that leadership style must be fluid and dependent on the developmental level of the team members. It includes supporting, coaching, delegating, and directing. Supporting has a high level of supportive behavior and a low level of directive behavior. Coaching has a high level of supportive behavior and a high level of directive behavior. Delegating has a low level of supportive behavior and a low level of directive behavior. And then directing has a high level of directive behavior and a low level of supportive behavior. Five practice of exemplary leaders. 5 characteristics of exemplary leaders include the ability to do the following: model the way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. Five bases of power. 5 bases of power include reward, coercive, legitimate, expert, and referent power within the team setting. Reward power is established when a member of the team possesses significant means to reward the other members for positive behavior. Coercive power stems from the power to punish others. Legitimate power is associated with the implied power of certain roles in a group or organization. Expert power is awarded to members who are perceived as having knowledge in a particular or useful to the group. And referent power is a source of power that is established by those who are charismatic and well liked by others. There are 4 components of successful persuasion and persuading others. Those 4 components of persuading others include establishing credibility, finding common ground, providing evidence, and making an emotional connection. Chapter 5. Group development observation system is a way of categorizing and analyzing verbal interactions that take place on group members. The Group Development Observation System, GDOS, classifies statements into one of 8 categories. While the statements can sometimes fit into one category, trained observers agree that 85-90% of the time the 8 The 8 DOS, DGOS categories are dependency statements, those who are shown to inclination to conform to the dominant mood of the group; counter-dependency statements, which are assertive, independent by resisting the current leadership; flight statements directly challenge others using arguments, criticism, and aggression. Flight statements is an attempt to avoid work. and demonstrate lack of commitment to the group. Pairing statements express warmth and friendship. Counter pairings demonstrate avoidance of intimacy and interpersonal connection. Work statements are those that represent a goal-directed, task-oriented. Unscorable statements are those that are unintelligible, unaudible. The following nonverbal communication. The following percentage represent collective contributions of verbal and nonverbal components that the listener uses to interpret a message. 7% come from verbal clues, 38% come from vocal clues, 55% from facial expressions. Posturing. Posturing is the use of identity markers to influence the perception, opinion, or approval of others and to bolster one's status within a team. Identity markers might include physical appearance, personal office or room decorations, body posture, demeanor, and explicit statements. The acronym SOLAR describes 5 specific behaviors that encourage a listening posture. S for square, face the person squarely. O for open, keep an open posture without crossing arms. L for lean, slightly lean to communicate the interest and engagement. And E, make eye contact. And R, relax. Paraphrasing is a powerful listening skill that validates others, builds trust, and invites deeper levels of disclosure. Probing is a third skill that facilitates active listening. Probing with open-ended questions is an excellent way to gather information. Hypothetical questions give you insight into the state of mind of the speaker. Forced questions call upon the response to make a choice. The answer is one of these questions would demonstrate the respondent's priorities. Centralized versus decentralized communication. In decentralized structure, members engage both advocacy, posturing their own views, and inquiry, exploring other views. Groups tend to adopt a more centralized communication structure if the task is relatively simple, and becomes more decentralized as the task becomes more complex. This trend is due to the fact that task uncertainty and ambiguity lead to wider participation and more open exchange of information. Chapter 6, Decision Making. Information processing is a series of cognitive processes that make sense of incoming sensory data. Words and nonverbal clues are perceived through 5 senses. Igris describes the process of perceiving and interpreting data as the ladder of inference. Each step as a rung describes how information is perceived and processed, from the bottom to the top of the ladder moving up. First is the available data, then select the data, interpret the data, draw conclusions, at the top take action. Schemes are internal dictionaries or rule books that are used to interpret incoming data quickly and efficiently. Drawing conclusions. The following is a list that describes common mistakes people make when receiving and responding to messages. Overgeneralization, all or nothing thinking, catastrophizing, personalization, emotional reasoning, and mind reading. The fundamental attribution error is which an assessment of others that attributes behavior or personality traits and underestimates social context. For example, a group member named John becomes quiet and disengaged because he's annoyed at the lack of structure in the group's meetings. Observing this quiet behavior and noticing the scowl on John's face, another member might think the fundamental attribution error and conclude that John is angry by nature. From then on, the observer is likely to select and interpret data about John based on the assumption and thus confirm that bias. Groupthink is one of the most common decision-making problems in groups. Groupthink is a mode of thinking that people engage in when they are deeply involved in a cohesive in-group, when the members striving for being unanimous override their motivation to realistically appraise alternative courses of actions. Overconfidence, when groups make decisions, it's easy for them to demonstrate overconfidence in their conclusions without fully considering the complexity of the problem that they are trying to solve. Confirmation bias occurs when members look for information to confirm the decision for the most part has already been made. Shared information bias is a tendency of groups to spend most of their time discussing information that's already known by most of the members. And group polarization is a tendency for groups to make more extreme decisions than an individual would make on his own. Systems thinking is an approach to problem solving that encourages group members to resist a redundant view of problems that can result in short-sighted solutions and unintended consequences. Ideas, decisions, and plans must be considered in light of the context within which they will be implemented.